In this video, we will explore the motives that firms may have for diversifying across multiple industries. The reason this is relevant here is not all of these motives really represent strategically viable or strategically justifiable reasons, and we'll get into which ones are versus which ones are more questionable from the investor perspective. Generally, there are four basic motives for diversification. One, the firm is seeking growth. Two, the firm is seeking risk reduction. Three, the firm is seeking additional profits. And four, there are some managerial reasons that lead the firm to diversify. If we first look at the growth motive, firms often diversify because their core industry or the industries that they operate in currently have stagnated and growth has dried up. As a result, the firm is diversifying to seek new growth. The question here is the firm really seeking, is the firm really going to create value, or is the firm just looking for growth? If the investor can obtain the same growth through investing in different shares of stock, then the firm should not diversify. It should return the money to the shareholders and let them look for growth by investing in other stocks. However, oftentimes this growth motive is a result of pressure from the markets to grow the firm in terms of its revenue and profit. Generally, shareholders place great pressure on management to grow revenue and profit each year, and the firm thus may be pressured actually to expand into new industries to achieve this growth. In addition, there are often managerial incentives to grow, and thus the shareholders may be providing the managers a reason or a push to grow for sake of growth because of the way they're compensated. It's worth noting, again, that not all of these growth motives are strategically justifiable. Again, if the shareholders can grow themselves by investing in other stocks, the firm might consider returning the money to shareholders and letting them do it. A second common motive for a firm to diversify is to reduce the risk to its own cash flows. By operating in multiple industries, particularly ones that are not directly correlated, the firm may reduce its volatility of cash flows. However, we have to ask the question, whose risk is reduced? If shareholders can complete this same variance of reduction in their own cash flows by investing in different stocks, then it doesn't make sense for the firm to diversify for them, return the money to shareholders, and let the shareholders diversify. The only time it makes sense for the firm to diversify to reduce risk rather than let the shareholders do it is if the firm can do it in a way that shareholders can't. So, for example, as a firm, I might diversify by buying up a private firm in a new industry. Shareholders do not have access to private firms and cannot invest in them, so the firm may be able to reduce risk in a way that shareholders can't. But this is the only time it really makes sense, when the firm can do something that shareholders cannot do. And again, there must be a focus on creating value. The synergies 2 + 2 > 4 must be present during this risk reduction process. As noted earlier, firms are pressured to create additional profit. Thus, value creation really becomes a focus for seeking diversification in search of new forms of profits. What's important to note here is that when we diversify and start to expand across multiple industries, jointly operating these businesses together must create additional profit over and above what the shareholder can do on their own. This involves making sure we enter attractive industries and also that we can achieve competitive advantage in those industries. Thus, profitability as a motive for diversification makes sense if we can do so in a way that shareholders can't. However, we must keep in mind, does the cost to enter the new industry consume all of the benefits of doing so? If this is the case, if the cost of entry is too high, then the diversification in search of profitability actually will end up the opposite and will end up losing more money. Thus, shareholders should be very concerned when they see firms diversifying for profit and make sure it makes sense for the firm to do it rather than to return the cash to the investors and let the investors diversify by buying different types of stocks. Finally, there are managerial motives for diversification. One, managers' wealth, income, and reputation are tied to the firm. Thus, if the firm is only operating one industry, the risk is greater should they experience problems in that industry. Thus, there's a managerial motive to operate across multiple industries to reduce the risk to their own employment. Two, managers are paid more to manage larger firms. The CEO of a $10 billion firm is paid more than the CEO of a $1 billion firm. Thus, there's actually a rationale or an incentive for managers to grow the firm through diversification because, in essence, they will be then increasing their own salary and their own benefits and their own power. Third, as noted earlier, shareholders pressure managers to constantly grow revenue and profit. In essence, they are giving managers a push to continue to diversify and seek in search of that growth. And as shareholders, there's sort of an unintended consequence here where this pressure to diversify and grow the firm may actually lead managers to make suboptimal decisions. Finally, sometimes managers are incentivized or motivated to diversify if they contain excess resources or excess cash within the firm. The firm does not want to let this excess cash sit around or these excess resources go unutilized. Thus, they may look to diversify to utilize these resources and create additional value. However, this may not necessarily be the best use of those resources, as those resources may be better off returned to the investors. Thus, as we look back, the key thread through these four motives really come down to if the firm, through diversification, can create value that shareholders cannot create on their own, the firm should diversify. However, if the firm is diversifying in ways or for reasons that shareholders can either replicate or do better, the firm should not diversify. They should return the money to shareholders and let the shareholders use that money to do what they want to do to create additional value.